It's my pleasure to introduce our tonight's speaker, Cori Berg. I will read the bio that she shared with us. Cori Berg is a teacher, administrator, and trainer in the field of early childhood education. She has a Master of Arts degree from United Theological Seminary in Art and Religion and a bachelor's degree from Valparaiso, correct me, Cori, if I mispronounced it, University, where she studied theater, art, and philosophy. She's currently pursuing her Master's of Education in Curriculum and Instruction. She loves to paint, cook, dance salsa. Her writing, speaking, and storytelling focus on themes of beauty in frailty, compassion in community, and mindfulness. And my personal experience of Cori is she's a generous soul of supporting Dallas Meditation Center with her insights, with me, with her mentorship, and she shows up in so many beautiful, generous ways. So it's always a pleasure to hear her give talks to us. And I will now pass it over to Cori, and she will enjoy this talk.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay? Is my volume okay? Okay, good. My first time giving this by Zoom, so I had hoped to be there in person, but it just didn't quite work out this time. So, all right. I know I can't be the only one. I had been given a task at work, not just a task, many tasks. A real mess to clean up that was not my own making. And I was bitter, resentful, angry, and frustrated. A side of myself I don't like to see. Over a period of weeks, I was giving a valiant effort. I was getting up every day at 5 a.m. I would read for an hour and then meditate. Every day I would leave my house determined to have a positive state of mind. I was committed to staying at ease. I placed a small jade Buddha figurine by my keyboard to help me remember to be calm. I downloaded the Plum Village app so I could have a mindfulness bell go off every hour. Everyone in my office began to stop and breathe with me. But it wasn't working. The work was slow. I was moving through my days feeling so weighed down. I'd physically become sluggish as I opened the door to my office every day, dropped my purse on the floor, and sat down to my desk. My mind started having a hard time taking in information. It felt hazy. And each day a moment would come, sometimes sooner, sometimes later, of complete shutdown. Without realizing it, my meditation practice had actually become a practice of aversion. I was clinging so tightly to the idea of equanimity. And in that clinging, my mind was not accepting my own feeling of, frankly, of being pissed off. And that inner fight was holding me prisoner. I was stuck in a vicious cycle of equally pushing away my true feelings and becoming overcome with my narrative of resentment. Day after day after day. Mark Epstein is a psychotherapist and a Buddhist practitioner. In his book, Thoughts Without a Thinker, he says, meditation is not world denying. The slowing down that it requires is in service of closer examination of the day-to-day mind. Epstein talks about how Western meditation can create this oceanic glossing over of experience, how we end up being held hostage when we refuse to acknowledge unwanted feelings. Certainly, meditation can be a tool to calm the incessant chatter in the mind. But we don't calm the chatter by constricting it. We calm it by letting it flow. My last talk here was about learning to develop patience when angry. And since then, I've had this unsettling feeling regarding the topic of anger, especially when thinking about issues of social justice. I was so relieved when I read the book Awakening the Mind and Lightening the Heart by the Dalai Lama, where he said, sometimes anger is the appropriate response, especially when we need to protect people. But how do we hold anger? How do we hold discomfort? How do we hold pain without being consumed by it? Buddha talked of 5 hindrances to our minds. The first is desire or attachment or clinging to something. The second is aversion or this hatred that I was feeling. The third is sloth or laziness. The fourth is restlessness or anxiety. And the fifth is doubt. As I began to dissect what was happening for me in these weeks of aversion to my work experience, I began to see all 5 hindrances playing at once. I desired comfort, ease, calmness, appreciation, and help. Because of that, I was pushing away the difficulty of the moment I was in. That was the aversion. I began to shut down and avoid laziness. And as I shut down, my mind became taken over by anxiety of all that was not being done, solutions I wasn't finding. And beyond that, my fears became charged with doubt that I wasn't capable, that I would become engulfed, that I would be swallowed up by my circumstances. Until my practice finally brought me to awareness of what was playing out in my mind. I realized my mind was creating more suffering than the suffering of the situation itself. And I realized very quickly, before I could move forward, I must accept the situation and stop fighting it. And the good news is that that realization was like a gate opening up in my mind. Very quickly, energy began to flow, and I was finally able to accomplish tasks. I felt lighter and less burdened. Insight meditation teacher Joseph Goldstein calls this second hindrance, the aversion hindrance, he calls it the condemning mind. It includes anger, ill will, aversion, hatred, irritation, and annoyance. all are expressions of pushing away experience. Our minds can condemn our experience, our situations, other people, and ourselves. This condemning clouds the wisdom that comes when looking more deeply at our own suffering. But when we learn to accept pain as part of the human experience, we're able to see more clearly and find freedom. One example of how this can play out is physical pain. I've spoken in past Dharma talks about my childhood history with scoliosis surgeries and how it has led to chronic pain. My mind, on some level, has had to come to terms with persistent pain and acceptance. As a child, I somehow learned I had to accept physical pain or I would go crazy. In my 20s, I was hospitalized for a really serious staph infection. I would wake up in the middle of the night in excruciating pain. The pain medication wasn't working. A very kind night nurse would make me a cup of good old Lipton tea. The hot drink, the sipping, the steam on my upper lip helped me release into the physical pain, accept it instead of fighting it. In a similar way, when I get migraines, I have found laying flat on the ground and playing shamanic drumming works better than medication for me. I stop tensing and I accept the pain as part of my experience. Now, that is my experience, and I don't want to infer that all physical pain can be willed away, but a practice of gently holding physical pain has been helpful. Then there is emotional experience, which can also play out physically. I'm not able to do this as well. In fact, because I'm prone to denying my emotions, my body holds the emotional stress from work or relationships. I'm fighting my experience as I think about it. It has happened a number of times where I'm going through a difficult time in my life, trying not to be consumed by my emotions, and my body is unconsciously very tense. And a simple move like reaching for a shampoo bottle or getting up from the couch results in a strain in my back that limits my movement for weeks. The pandemic was an emotionally and socially grueling time for many of my early childhood director colleagues as we navigated the stress of families losing their jobs, families losing childcare when we shut down for quarantines, navigated people's fear about safety, and many differing opinions about what should happen. At some point, my colleagues and I realized many of us were complaining of jaw issues. We were gritting our teeth unconsciously. At times, leaders have high emotional labor when they have to project calmness and having it all together, when inside they feel a very different experience. It can lead to mental health issues. We have to learn to accept the real experience we are living, not just the curated image our roles require. And then there is the very layered aversion that comes with interpersonal experience. I was introduced to a book recently called White Tears, Brown Scars: How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color by Ruby Hamad. In her introduction to the book, Hamad shares the stories of an exchange between Fox News panelists after Charlottesville riots in 2017. The riots ended with a white supremacist driving his car into a group of protesting people, killing 32-year-old Heather Heyer. President Trump claimed both sides were responsible for the violence. So I'd like to read an excerpt about the exchange between Melissa Francis, a white panel host, and Harris Faulkner, a Black panel host. Defending Trump, Francis claimed he was being misrepresented and had never tried to apportion equal blame. When her co-host attempted to correct her, she became visibly emotional. Quote, "I know what is in my heart, and I know that I don't think anyone is different, better or worse, based on the color of their skin." Her voice cracked. Quote, "But I feel like there is nothing any of us can say right now without being judged." Unquote. No sooner had the word judged left her lips than the tears started. The panel fell into an awkward silence for a moment, and it was left to co-host Faulkner, a Black woman, to calmly step in, and without a trace of emotion in her voice or on her face to respond. This is her response. "You know, Melissa, there have been a lot of tears on our network and across the country and around the world." Faulkner began quietly but firmly, while the other woman closed her eyes and shook her head as if in pain. She went on, "It's a difficult place where we are, but it's not where we've been. It's where we are, and we can have this conversation. Oh, yes, we can." This is where we are now. We do not move forward individually or collectively when we are not able to pause and gently lean into the discomfort. Without the pause, we simply avoid, gloss over, or react. Sometimes the discomfort we must sit with is our own blind spots, our own emotional responses, and our own mistakes. When those moments happen, we can consider our need to self-protect. Why do we cling to the need to be perfect or good or moral? Why does the clinging to our own image matter more than the lived experience of those in our midst? Dr. Kristen Neff is an expert on self-compassion. She's a professor at the University of Texas at Austin. She's written several books about self-compassion, and she is informed by Buddhist practice. Her own experience of learning self-compassion practice developed out of her experience of being a mother of a child with special needs and going through a painful divorce. She faced her own imperfections. I have used her practices in these fragile moments where either I feel wronged or I have wronged someone else. She says to stop, pause, put your hand on your heart, and talk to yourself as if you're tending to your own child to provide comfort. Dear one, I know this moment hurts. You can do this. You'll be okay. you're more than this mistake. And sometimes she talks about even holding your own self. It probably sounds silly, and I probably looked silly just modeling it to you. But I have found that particular practice to be one of the most helpful ways of working through uncomfortable emotions. It's a way to work through the defense. And if I'm not able to speak kindly and nurture myself, I simply stop and focus on the physical feeling in my body, the tightening of my throat, my chest, my face feeling like it's getting hot. I just recognize the physical feeling. Thich Nhat Hanh, in his book, Fear, Essential Wisdom for Getting Through the Storm, says that meditation has two practices: stopping and calming first, and then second, looking deeply for transformation. So I'm going to read an excerpt from that. It's a little lengthy, so just sit back a minute. When you have enough energy of mindfulness, you can look deeply into any emotion and discover the true nature of that emotion. If you can do that, you will be able to transform the emotion. Of course, emotions have deep roots in us. They are so strong, we think we will not survive them if we let them be. We deny and suppress them until finally they explode and cause hurt to ourselves and to others. But an emotion is just an emotion. It comes, it stays for a while, and then it goes away. Why should we hurt ourselves or others just because of one emotion? We are so much more than our emotions. If we know how to practice looking deeply, we will be able to identify and uproot the sources of our painful emotions. Just practicing embracing the emotions can already be very helpful. If during the critical moment when the emotion is there, we know how and where to take refuge, if we are able to breathe in and out and focus our attention on the rise and fall of our abdomen for 15 or 20 or even 25 minutes, then the storm will toll away and we will be aware that we can survive. When we succeed in surviving strong emotions, we experience a more solid peace of mind. Once we have got the practice, we're no longer afraid. The next time a strong emotion arises, it becomes easier. We already know that we can survive it. If we can relax when our strong emotions come, then we don't pass fear on to our children and to future generations. This is where we are now. Right now, this practice is imperative. So I'm in my 50s, and at this age, I'm aware that there are some things that I did not grow up with. Language and ideas, ways of seeing the world around me, ways of interacting with others in an inclusive world that are not second nature to me. There are biases I have not identified. There are others I have seen but fear to admit. When I identify a moment where there is a gap in how I move and speak in the world, I can pause. Instead of pushing through the underlying embarrassment or shame and becoming defensive, I can pause and let those feelings move through and be grateful for the lesson. And this is true for any kind of experience we feel ourselves pushing out. For me, the mantra, "This is where I am now," has become very helpful. And in my community, "This is where we are now." Like the co-hosts on the news show, this is where we are now, and we can have this conversation. The words keep me rooted in the moment. And as I say those words, there is a deep acceptance and acknowledgement that things will not get better if I continue to avoid the pain. I have to be flexible and stop bracing. Like the branch of a tree heavy with snow, if it holds stiff, the bough breaks. If it bends, it's able to bear the weight. In order to release the aversion, I have to be gentle with myself. I have to recognize the attachment connected to it. Again, the mantra helps me. This is where I am now. I am not expecting things to be any other than how they are now. The first noble truth, there is suffering. The second noble truth, the cause of suffering is attachment. The other side of that is aversion. The third noble truth, it is possible to end suffering by letting go of this attachment. And the fourth noble truth, there is a way to end suffering by seeking wisdom, disciplining our minds, and following the path. This is where I am now. I'm going to end with a poem by David White, and it's called The House of Belonging. I awoke this morning in the gold light, turning this way and that. Thinking for a moment it was one day like any other. But the veil had gone from my darkened heart, and I thought it must have been the quiet candlelight that filled my room. It must have been the first easy rhythm with which I breathed myself to sleep. It must have been the prayer I said, speaking to the otherness of the night. And I thought, this is the good day you could meet your love. This is the gray day someone close to you could die. This is the day you realize how easily the thread is broken between this world and the next. And I found myself sitting up in the quiet pathway of light, the tawny, close-grained cedar burning round me like fire, and all the angels of this housely heaven ascending through the first roof of light the sun has made. This is the bright home in which I live. This is where I ask my friends to come. This is where I want to love all the things it has taken me so long to learn to love. This is the temple of my adult aloneness. And I belong to that aloneness as I belong to my life. There is no house like the house of belonging. So I have a few questions for you to break into groups for about 10 minutes to discuss, and then we can reconvene. And you can figure out your own partners. We're all adults in aloneness, right? We can come together as needed. And so a couple of questions you can use or just kind of discuss how you feel. How do you notice when your practice becomes glossing over your suffering? How do you notice when you are being aversive to experience? And do you have any kind of mantra or practice or that you use to help you become more accepting of challenging experiences? So I'll let you discuss that, and then we'll come back in about 10 minutes.